This tier list might be a little bit finicky because the game keeps constantly changing, introducing and tweaking certain stats for specific or all monsters included. For example, this tier list is done up to Springtrap with the Infinite Stamina Edition added to the game whenever no survivors are near within 50 studs. As of writing the script, it's 75 now, which presumably changes how strong some of the fast stamina drain killers are, like Rosemary and Fogborn. But if I keep playtesting these new changes made seemingly every day, I'm never gonna have a tier list out. So some of these monsters I feel somewhat confident in tiering, others not so much, but I do pretty much play every monster in the game equally so I can get a better feel on how strong they are. Again, the Infinite Stamina Edition being introduced and tweaked may very well change how strong certain killers are, so I'll just first tier the two killers I think are impacted the most by this, which are Fogborn and Rosemary. Both of these monsters have the fastest stamina speed, but also the fastest drain speed. Without the addition of the infinite stamina when not near players, Rosemary would probably be somewhere in the D tier, and Fogborn would probably be in the S tier. Let's talk about Rosemary first though. Rosemary being in D tier shouldn't really be a surprise. Their abilities quite frankly suck. The only one useful being echolocation to highlight players. Rosemary struggles to kill players that aren't in dead zones or just people who are aware of where the monster is located. Struggle not as in not capable, but rather needs to invest a lot of time to kill those players that aren't already in terrible positions. However, that's not to say that she isn't dangerous. Against a good Rosemary, being caught off guard for even a split second can be the deciding factor if you die or not. She's much faster than you, is able to get at least a couple of hits in if you're in a good Rosemary's range of attack, but I think it's safe to say that this killer is quite map dependent. So any map with long giant hallways with little to no room to cut off players like Schoolhouse or Gilgamesh, that's what makes her really, really weak. However, because of the Infinite Stamina Edition, this makes certain maps a lot more bearable, making her not have to waste so much stamina just to get near players. This made it so that she doesn't have to waste so much time trying to kill players in the open, and then just in general is just able to kill a lot more frequently. This is how I felt playing her anyways when they first introduced it, but they did nerf the distance that you need to be away from players to get infinite stamina from 50 studs to 75. Due to how much this change is tied to this killer's strength, I'm not so confident where I should put her on the tier list. So I'll just go with a light C. Fogborn, on the other hand, is incredibly strong. Now, the Infinite Stamina Edition does make Fogborn even more of a kill machine, being able to cruise along ass maps like Gilgamesh, but even without that, I'd argue that Fogborn is still the best monster in the game. They are incredibly fast, have an ability that can recover stamina, both when players look or when they don't look at them, has an incredibly strong teleport, a long attack range, super fast, the only real downside being, well, his stamina drain, in which his abilities are there to help with that. Not only is Fogborn not map reliant, but he is one of the only monsters in the game that can consistently kill competent players. Having full stamina and teleporting next to someone, you're almost always able to get at least a hit or two in. You're also able to use his main ability to get full stamina and fast speed from one player and then go for someone else entirely, maybe someone you'd probably struggle killing in the end portion of the match. Now with the Infinite Stamina Edition, he's able to make use of his speed the most due to his stamina drain, making him an insanely strong monster, leagues better than any of the other monsters in the game. And this is an opinion I feel pretty strongly about. But again, due to the stud range nerf, he is slightly weaker. But because of his power and stats in general, he still stays in this spot. Vapor is the other free monster you can play as. They are very strong in the right hands. They are incredibly punishing. Getting hit by them just once along with a spider bite is enough to put you in a bone break. They have a fast attack cooldown, allowing them to get multiple hits in a dead zone room with multiple people trying to get out. They are capable of killing people incredibly fast. Although being abused by competent players, if you're able to kill an entire lobby quickly, you can usually cause the last guy to struggle quite a bit by pressuring him with spiders and just non-stop teleporting. And even though spiders only do 8 damage, you can have 2 at once and keep pressuring him to keep running away. Again, this is a monster that I can't confidently tier. It's mostly due to how every other update feels like the spiders AI is just stupid. Like, yeah, some maps like Mansion have the spiders just not understand what a wall is half the time. Sometimes the spiders go back and forth when you only want them to just keep attacking. Sometimes they're very buggy and slow, like it's very inconsistent. But during the time that I played as Vapor, assuming this is how they're supposed to be, I put them somewhat confidently in the yes tier. But if the AI of the spiders or just the speed is slower by even a little bit, they'd be dropped down by a lot. They are capable of killing competent players endgame, but they can still struggle to do so, but able to snowball very quickly in the match, leaving them plenty of time to try to kill the last competent player. Honestly, I thought EXE was a lot stronger when I first started playing this game. Their traps almost feel like magnets and being hard to spot in certain maps, which was just instant death if caught when EXE is around. He has a very strong hit combo where he can just hit someone with his regular attack and then just use his too slow ability to instantly put someone in bone break. His traps are very useful just for brief mobility whenever someone steps on them across the entire map. However, I'm not gonna lie, he is pretty map reliant. This dude can seriously struggle killing any competent player on a lot of the maps. In order to do good with him, you need to be constantly placing traps that can catch survivors. Relying on just his combo and stamina alone, he's able to get people bone broken somewhat easily, but the cooldown with the combo, not to mention the animation that plays out after too slow, which allows the player to make their escape, this guy has a bit of a kill efficiency problem. Of course, he will still struggle on certain maps, along with many killers in the game, but he needs maps that can utilize his traps well. That being said, he's a pretty average monster at best in terms of strength. Not too weak, not too strong. I feel like a B is quite accurate for this one. Oni, one of the first monsters in this game I would personally consider the face of the game. Uncle Samsonite being the second. This killer is absolutely terrifying to go against early game, especially against competent players. Being caught by this dude whenever you're doing an objective is basically a death sentence. His attack cooldown being super short, his attack range being long, his stamina bar and drain being almost entirely identical to a player. The speed of the monster only being slightly slower than a survivor. The kill animations being short. Oni has a lot going for him. Without a doubt, one of the best lobby clears in the game. Arguably better than Vapor. But where Oni struggles, where Vapor struggles just a bit less, is against that one or two competent players you find yourself going against at the end of the game. Oni is able to tunnel these players in the beginning part of the game by being shapeshifted as they are doing objectives. But in most maps, Oni struggles to catch these people off guard. And that's kind of Oni's entire jig. Catching people off guard and severely punishing for it. However, it's still absolutely possible, and you can totally shapeshift as someone to either suppress your footsteps or just to fool them, because the players in the game don't actually know how many survivors are left alive due to their passive. So because of that, I would comfortably put Oni in a high A tier. Baldi has an incredibly awful early game. Their speed in the beginning of the match is very slow and passively speeds up as the match keeps going. But if you manage to make players get math book questions incorrect or just kill people early game so you can hit the max speed cap faster. Late game, this guy is pretty terrifying, but you have to keep in mind that because you struggle killing players early on, it's more likely that players will finish their sets of objectives, leaving you less time to work with. So you have to play very well in the early game, which can be hard because hitting his attacks are a lot harder than any other monster in the game. With that aside though, he's still pretty fun to play as. Getting hits with him feels a lot more satisfying due to it being harder to pull off, but his early game is really what's keeping him from being strong. But I would somewhat comfortably place him in the C tier. Now let's to the absolute GOAT, Uncle Samsonite. He's the first, and as of recording, the only monster in this game I've personally gotten gold with. Although I haven't really been playing him too much in the last 2 weeks, because I've been trying out the other monsters in this game. I'm not entirely sure, but I have an inkling that he is bugged. Uncle Samson has 3 abilities. His first one, Sam's Domain, which makes him grab someone and teleport into his domain. Dance Off, which has a bit of a small radius, but incredibly punishing if you're caught in it for too long, causing you to dance. And then his last ability, Domain Traversal, which in my opinion is the main way you're going to get kills against competent players. Now, what I mean by bugged is that teleporting someone into your domain is supposed to increase the time. But it doesn't. Time only ever increases if you yourself teleport into the domain, regardless if you teleported someone else or not. For the most part, I think teleporting someone into your domain is a waste of time, only used for very specific situations. And also RNG, since they could totally escape within one of the first few doors that they find. I think his dance off is very punishing for people in dead zones, or if Uncle Samsonite just happens to teleport onto them through the domain. but he really does struggle to kill competent players. It is possible to just keep going into the domain until you randomly teleport into the last guy. It's a struggle, man. You're relying on RNG. Also, because of one of the newest changes, all knockback has been removed, and any monster in the game that had a large knockback, upon hitting someone, they're supposed to have a much shorter attack cooldown, but Uncle Samson sure as hell doesn't feel like the attack cooldown has been shortened. I feel like the knockback removal for all monsters in the game is a healthy change overall, but I think Uncle Samson should probably be the only exception for this. Even though his cons are very apparent, he is still incredibly strong and terrifying to go against, especially early game where most players are going for objectives. So I'm feeling a strong A on this one. And finally, we were talking about the newest monster in the game, Springtrap. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned how I thought he was pretty weak, but very punishing due to him essentially having to rely on an ability to kill anyone, which had an insanely long cooldown. Well, he's been nerfed, and now his ability affects stamina drain instead of stamina overall. I'm not here to say if this is a healthy change or not, but because of this change, he is easily the worst monster in the game. He is so bad that I can essentially taunt any high-leveled or skilled Springtrap, purposefully get in the range of their ventilation error, and still make it out without a scratch. I don't know what they're gonna do to combat this, but he sucks, man. But hey, now he's not that annoying to go against, right? Very confidently putting him in the F tier. I'm sure there is probably wiggle room for some of these monsters, but this is how I feel right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these monsters completely change in strength within the span of a week. But hey, discuss in the comments. Get angry or something. I know.